What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Latin Explaining. My name is Denise Gonzalez. For those who do not know me, for those who do, welcome once again to another episode. I see that I have some people that started the chat: Melanated Knight, Jose, United States of Atlantic Creole Nationalist Party, Morena. Morena, what's up, Morena? ¿Cómo estás? And Culturally Castizo. Welcome, guys. It's, as usual, a pleasure to have you guys here. Here in Satan's asshole, California, where it's hot in the middle of fall and it's reaching 90 degrees. Supposedly it was 86 degrees, but it felt like it was 90. But anyway, it's still hot. It's still summer here somehow for some crazy reason. We're still in a drought, just like I said yesterday. So if you're in the state of California, just like I am, today is a normal beach day. Don't get in the water though, but it's a normal beach day as usual, guys. And before I start today's show, I want to say that if you missed yesterday's stream, I feel bad for you. Um, Second, I want to say that yesterday's stream was a little bit controversial for some people, but it's going to be something that I also want to bring awareness to because, like I said, I mostly focus on business and the financial aspect of things, but I don't want to let the politics of this country and also the politics that affect Latin America, be slipped away. And I love getting political. I know politics is a topic that a lot of people don't like, but I love them. I happen to love politics. So if you don't like politics, well, it sucks for you. Hi, Christina. How are you? So, guys, without any further ado, like I said, if you haven't watched yesterday's show, it's out there. Go watch it. Trust me, you're not gonna regret it. But without any further ado, let's get this show started.
Take it to the next level.
And guys, today's show is a little bit different than the shows that I normally bring, that are focused more on like different topics regarding, especially during this season. This season, we're going to focus on the slow taps and all the taps community, or like Rakim calls them, the United Taps of America. UTA is not USA anymore, is the United Taps of America. But for the sake of this show, because I've had a lot of people, every time I bring up Puerto Rico, a lot of people don't necessarily understand our relationship to the United States. They don't understand the intricacies of it. They don't understand where we stand or what things have transpired between these two frenemies. But today I'm going to try to simplify an explanation so that you guys can understand, and also so that nobody can tell you that you don't know something. So if you don't know the relationship that Puerto Rico has with the United States, which is that of frenemies, then you need to watch this show so that you can understand. And also, if you want to expand your research, you can also do that. But mostly all the show is going to be focused on Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans for that matter. So if you want to contribute, if you want to learn more, stick around and trust me, I'm gonna keep you updated on what's going on. And starting and talking about what's happening in Puerto Rico, I posted recently on my Instagram something that has shocked a lot of people because they don't know what's going on. And I know, hi Ramon, mi fellow puertorriqueño, hueva. One thing that I posted like several days ago is the dynamic that's been happening with Luma Energy. You guys know that, I have spoken about Luma Energy in the past, and even before Luma Energy took control over the power grid of the island, I actually talk about how Luma Energy was not the best solution for the Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica, the AEE, which was the previous supplier of energy in Puerto Rico. For that, a lot of people, including people from the island, actually came at me for no reason, saying and stating that the AEE was trash, which I agree. I agree 1,000%. The Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica was crappy and it was not giving a service that people were paying for. They had a lot of issues with delivering actually the service. The prices were skyrocketing. They had stupid excuses. We had high executives that were getting paid good money for not doing a lot, but Luma was not the solution. And I understand that a lot of people out of desperation decided that if the AE, the Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica, was not providing the service that they wanted or that they felt like they deserved because it was more expensive, then something, whatever, should have replaced it. And to be honest with you, in my opinion, that transition was completely emotional on Puerto Rico's part, and that's why we are where we are. Just when people just when people thought that they were going to get out of the hot water because the AEE was going away, honey, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Luma Energy increased the power, the service for Puerto Ricans up to 33%. And I discussed here last season how some Puerto Ricans saw their bills going from $300 to $1,400 dollars a month. Some saw it from $75 going all the way to $500, and so and so and so. They kept increasing, and then they requested the oversight board another increase on top of the increase that they already had for 16% more without any justification. And to be honest with you, hi Blood Moon. And by the way, I before I continue, I want to say thank you to Blood Moon and to Gabriel for their Cash App donations. Thank you very much, guys, for supporting my platform. I'm very grateful. And like I said, if you can contribute financially, that is completely okay. Just hit the like button. And that also, I appreciate it as well because it helps me grow the platform. Now, continuing with the whole Luma tale, horror tale in Puerto Rico, they requested the oversight board to actually increase the service at 16% more than the 33% that they already increased the service. And a lot of Puerto Ricans started like questioning this because when Luma took over, unfortunately, this is a company, like I explained many streams ago. This company was established in June 2020, and in July 2020 they received, surprisingly, the contract to actually provide this service for Puerto Rico. This is a Canadian and a United States and an American corporation that was just formed through an LLC. And upon their contract, for people that don't understand, the way things work when it comes to government, it's pretty much similar to like what happens in the states. Like, for example, let's say that the states tomorrow want to provide, or let's just take the example of Luma. You want to provide a service to replace the public sector, when it comes to electricity. Well, you're looking for companies that can provide that service, and basically all the companies that wants to, get into the public sector, provide the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico with what it will be a business plan, how much it will cost, their prices, their invoices, and whatnot, and how they will structure this whole thing. And that goes into a quote unquote auction. And based on that, after being qualified by the proper officials, they go into this auction, they select randomly a company, and that company gets the contract. And usually it goes to the person that can or the company that can provide the best service at the lowest price. Now Luma Energy did not went through that process for some crazy reason, and nobody protested it on the island. A lot of people embrace it, like I mentioned before, simply because it was just something to get out of the strangling position with the Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica. So one thing I would say is that was the first thing that triggered me. The second was that they got a contract, and I get it. A lot of people don't have the time to read an 892 pages contract. That was what Luma submitted to the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. But I took my time to read at least 300 pages of it, and I found 5 reasons why Luma is has an illegal contract with the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. And I discussed them, like I said, many streams ago. So you might want to go back and look into that. But definitely, one of the things that literally, raised my attention and brought my attention into it is the fact that in their contract, they established that Puerto Rico had to pay them $100 million up front before they even took over. And the way they were going to, the justification for that $100 million spending bill was because simply they wanted to establish an office, print out emblems, stickers, promotions, and whatnot. Start producing uniforms and all this kind of stuff that a company is supposed to have before they even compete for this position. So we knew already that there was something fishy going on with Luma, but nobody seemed to notice, or if they noticed, they actually did not care. And one thing I would say, hi Pamela, how are you? It's nice to have you here. She says, can't wait. There's so many things about Puerto Rico that people get wrong, plus those never been cheating on us. So thank you for this. Absolutely. It's like I said, this is, if you watch this whole thing, trust me, you're going to understand Puerto Rico and you're going to be able to explain it to others with no problem. Now, one thing is, Atlantic Creole, no, there is not an initiative in Puerto Rico to build land reservations for the Boricua. Now, one thing I want to say is that after all that mess that people did not question, what happened was that the employees of the Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica had to actually reapply if they wanted to work for Luma. And if they decided that they wanted to hire those employees, then those employees will have a job. If not, they will be posted on another position, such as municipalities and such, so that they could become the gardeners or the painters or stuff like that, simply because um, the Luma Energy did not hire them, but they had to guarantee them a contract. Now, after all of that riffraff, Luma takes over and people don't question anything. Only the employees in the union of the AEE is the one questioning this and pressuring the whole thing. And people are cheering it on and clapping for it. Puerto Ricans started noticing that their bills, their electric bill is coming higher and higher and higher every time. And like I said, up to 33% more expensive. So after that situation, One thing that I would say is that unfortunately, again, people did not saw it coming. So it continued. I see that my mom is here. Hi, mommy. How are you? So one thing that I would say is that on top of that, people did not saw coming the whole thing with Luma Energy and continued to share it on until this past September, while I was visiting the island. I realized that a lot of people started becoming discontent with the service because every day you will have an average of two outages randomly, and they started putting statements out in the media saying, for example, oh, is the sargasso, which is algae that was coming into the island, nobody was managing it or doing anything like they do in the Dominican Republic, for example. And then they started blaming, when that didn't work, they started blaming the vegetation or the trees. There's too much nature, there's too much this, and that's why we can provide the service, and blah 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 blah. And they started making like a lot of excuses that didn't make sense to the people. So when people started becoming more and more disgruntled, they're like, why we're paying more for a service that's less reliable than the one that we had with the Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica before? And that's when people started then putting pieces together and questioning this contract. At that point, the governor Pedro Pierluisi said that, oh, I I haven't, had any issues with the contract, but this contract can be revisited at any time and it can be changed. He has made zero changes till this day, and it's been months since Luma took over. But like I said, I already have also a video on who is Pedro Pierluisi, and he's notorious for being corrupt. So of course he's not going to do anything. So at this point, we're already seeing and smelling there's some blood in the water. So a lot of people started coming for Luma Energy and demanding responses as to why the service is crappier when they're paying more money and how that money is being spent. And this is what brings me to this. What happened was that the legislature in Puerto Rico demanded the CEO, Wayne Stansby, the Luma Energy CEO, to provide, and this was 5 months ago, we're talking about June. Uh, um, so they demanded the CEO of Luma Energy, Wayne Stansby, to provide an itemized document uh, putting up how much Luma Energy executives were getting paid and how the money was being used. Now, one thing I would say is that he, and not only him, the whole company executives started to look for excuses as to why they should not produce these documents. And to be honest with you, they dragged the whole process all the way down to this past week. And what the courts did, the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeals, I'm sorry, what they did was that they decided that if he did not produce the documents by a specific date during this week, I believe it was today is Sunday, I think it was Wednesday. If he did not produce the documents by Wednesday at 5 p.m., he was going to be placed under arrest. And when Wednesday came, it was 5 p.m. They provided like partial documents on this. And we had um, one of the representatives for the Democratic Party in Puerto Rico decided to go into an interview with Ruben Sanchez. And he explained to the people of Puerto Rico what happened and why Wayne Stansby was not placed under arrest after not providing the itemized list on how they're spending the money. And I want you guys to listen to basically what the representative Luis Raúl Torres Cruz said about Luma Energy. And I want you guys to focus on basically what he's saying and what he's hinting here.
A mí también. A mí también. A mí también.
Seguro.
Give me one second, guys.
llegado. A mí también. Oficialmente. A mí también. A mí también. Seguro. Mira, Rubén, además yo estoy seguro que este señor está peleando todo el tiempo más, que tiene más de 1,5 millones de razones para hacerlo. Ah, bueno. Hablando claro, la gente se entiende. Claro que sí. Aunque sea en parábola. Sí, ¿verdad? Eso no lo enseñó Jesucristo. Sí, sí. Mire, entonces, la representación legal de la Cámara va a hacer esta mañana alguna petición al juez. Pues mira, ya nosotros radicamos la moción anoche informándole al juez Antonio Cueva Ramos que ellos no cumplieron con el mandato que le dio el tribunal de hoy. Tenemos que esperar cuál es la decisión final que va a tomar el juez.
So basically, what he's explaining is that, Wayne Stansby and Luma Energy did not provide anything. And also during that interview, if you want to see the whole interview, you have to go to WKAQ 580, which is basically where Ruben Sanchez carried this interview. I cannot play the whole thing, obviously. But basically, he's hinting at the idea that some government officials that are elected government officials in Puerto Rico are actually family members of the lawyers that represent Wayne Stansby and Luma Energy. So they know the intricacies on how to play the system and how to rig it. So, of course, they're going to go out of their way to help these people steal money. And that's what's hinting a lot of Puerto Ricans down the path of thinking that our government officials are actually profiting from this crooked deal with Luma Energy. Now, if you did not understand basically what they were talking about, another thing that Ruben Sanchez asked Luis Raul Torres was how much Wayne Stansby was getting paid. And Wayne Stansby, brace yourselves, but Wayne Stansby, well, let me just say this. Joe Biden's salary per year is $400,000. Wayne Stansby's salary is $1.5 million per year, which means that he gets paid more money than the President of the United States of America. Make that make freaking sense. And it's all coming from the pockets of a population in an island that's basically a colony. Well, not basically, a colony that is indebted by $56 billion and is being placed under austerity measures to the point that we have people that can't afford even to paint their homes because they have to pay the staggering prices for energy and electricity simply because we want to pay people like Wayne Stansby and all of these Luma Energy executives $1.5 freaking million in a country of less than 4 million people. Make that make sense. Joe Biden rules over 360 plus million people. And this dude is providing a service to less than 4 million people, which is crappy at its core, for $1.5 million a year. And you might ask yourself, how in hell is this possible? Thank you, Ramon. Thank you, Ramon. I want people to understand that this is not a stream where I would tolerate that stupidity. If you want to talk about race, there are streams for that. This stream is strictly about the Puerto Rican colony. So, like I said, back to what I was saying, make that make sense. And I want to say something. If you're a moderator in this channel, it's because I trust you with your wrench. If you see someone like bringing this whole race talk when we're trying to learn something and comment on it and post questions so that I can answer to my best ability, or because you want to have fun, which I allow, have fun in the chat all you want. But if there's someone like doing this kind of stuff, time them out, please. Thank you, moderators. Like, if you see somebody just taking this down craziness, just time them out. So definitely, to be honest with you, Blood Moon says private companies always pay more money than the government. Yeah, but this is not a private company. This is just a company. Okay, there's something in Puerto Rico called the agencias público-privadas, which means I'm going to outsource in the private sector a service for the public sector. I'm still going to regulate it as a public agency, but you're still going to have some sort of private autonomy. That's basically what this is. It's an APP, an agencia público-privada. It's still from the private sector, but you're serving the public sector, which makes you, under that specific term, a public agency. And because I'm putting taxpayers' money in it, we deserve to know, and we have the right to know everything and dictate how much you're going to get paid. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. So I see that JS, Radical Latino are here. Please hit that like button. So back to what I was saying. Make that make sense. I will even say, if he wants to get paid $800K, fine. Okay, get paid the $800K, but $1.5 million. And I cannot even get mad at Wayne Stensby. You know who I'm mad at? Our government officials that allow this stupidity to happen, especially our governor-in-chief that's always traveling. He's always away. He's always on a freaking vacation. He's always somewhere else but the island that he says he's the governor of, with his lousy 32% approval. He only won with 32% of the population vote. Oh, it's Morena's birthday. Happy birthday, Morena. We're going to do something nice later in the stream. So definitely, like I said, guys, how is this even... And what bothers me about this is the fact... Look at Radical. You're stupid, Radical. Stop. What really pisses me off about this whole situation is, how do we allow this to happen? And it goes back to what I was saying, and it's something that applies perfectly to the Puerto Rican population. We do not know how to freaking vote. We do not understand our voting rights. We do not understand anything. We barely have voting rights. We cannot vote for the president. The only people we can vote is for a governor that administers the colony. And even in that, we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to do that. Because if we would know how to do that, we wouldn't have the Pedro Pierluisis of life ruling over our island and ruining our kids' futures. And this is why I always come at the state taps. I always come at the state taps because they're the ones saying, oh, let's become a state. Let's do this. Let's do that. Blah, 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 blah. Let's vote for Pedro Pierluisi. Let's vote for the New Progressive Party. Let's vote for all these people. This is what that brings you. And this brings me back to what I stated yesterday. I think a voter reform or a voting rights reform is freaking due. If you do not pay taxes anymore, and you're either in retirement, in prison, in welfare, you should not be entitled to vote because you do not get affected by voting. You do not get affected by legislation. Therefore, you should not freaking vote. And you can come at me and tell me whatever you want. A lot of people can come at me and tell me whatever they want. But that's something I will forever stand behind. If you cannot provide your tax return or your tax form stamped by the IRS or stamped by Hacienda, you should not have the right to vote because you don't contribute to the country. You don't contribute to the island. You don't contribute to society. And that will fix all of our freaking problems here in the macro and in Puerto Rico in the micro. And that's what will stop people like Wayne Stansby, because right now what we're doing, every politician that we have elected since Luis Muñoz Marin, that SOB, every politician that has ever been elected since 1952 to administer the colony of Puerto Rico is basically making us give prey energy to all these gringos to come in, make a lot of profit out of the stupidity of my people. And this is why we have the Wayne Stansbys of life. And he's not the only one. Trust and believe, every time we sell or we do an alianza público-privada, a public-private alliance, this is what's happening behind it. Absolutely, Moonchaser. Absolutely. They are full of it. They are full of it. Absolutely full of it. And that's why I am not surprised. Later on that day, another thing that pissed me off a lot was the fact that they issued a warrant for Wayne Stansby's arrest, and he was nowhere to be found. When the sheriffs went to Luma Energy's headquarters, he was not there. People believe he even fled the island. And when he literally provided a USB with the rest of the documents. And it doesn't take a very bright or intelligent person to know that just when they finished doctoring the documents, that's when they decided to submit them. It took them 5 months to hide whatever it is they were hiding. So, like I said, it's something that I am so sorry, but I don't know if you're Puerto Rican, either from the diaspora, or if you're a Puerto Rican from the island, like myself and Ramon and whatnot, or like Jose or Moonchaser. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I am freaking pissed. Okay, and I want this to stop happening. And we have to start formulating plans that actually work to stop this from happening. We have to start either hide your grandma's voting card or do something. Do something, because to be honest with you, look, Moonchaser says, I am more than pissed. Yeah. It's just, look at Pamela. Yeah, you're an islander. I'm sorry, I skipped you. Forgive me. So it's like I said, it's something out of this world. But if we don't do something, this is gonna be our future. This is gonna be our future. That's literally gonna be our future. Like the more we continue to let these predators come in, because we allow these government officials to make us look like prey, one day you're going to wake up to the best future for Puerto Rico without any Puerto Ricans in it. This is just the beginning. It's happening. I went there, and I'm telling you, Puerto Rico does not even look like it used to look 8 years ago. We're seeing a staggering number of gringos moving in and not implementing anything but predatory behavior. And I'm not talking about what people think I'm talking about. I'm talking about white people. Moon, it's like Moon knows nothing about PR. Why is he upset? Obviously, because it's his home too. It's where you come from. It's where you come from, regardless if you were born or know all the intricacies about it. You're still gonna get pissed off because it's the place that you call home, and home is where the heart is. So it's like I said, come on. It's time for us to unite and start something outside of what it's being told to us. And it's time for us to understand that we have been lied to. And this whole bipartisan stupidity is not freaking working. It's costing you not only money, it's costing you your patrimony, your future, your ability to live in your own island. And it's costing you your island and your culture. It's going to be gone. If we continue on this path, I give Puerto Rico less than 50 years. Less than 50 years. But to be honest with you guys, that's not the only thing that I want to bring awareness to. Another thing, moving a little bit from Puerto Rico, I posted something on Instagram that was I found very interesting regarding news. And you guys know that lately we have heard about the shortage of workers that America is experiencing right now, because people think after the pandemic, people think that they deserve better. They are not going to continue to work for starvation wages. They're not going to continue to not be able to afford anything. And people are striking or quitting. And on top of that, you're requiring them to get vaccinated and whatnot. So people are quitting left and right. And one of the things that have gotten affected is the city of Massachusetts. And basically, what Boston Informativo reported, and a lot of other news outlets reported, is that the city of Massachusetts is looking for snowplow drivers paying up to $310 an hour, because there's a shortage of workers and drivers in that aspect. Now, a lot of people were like, well, you need equipment to get those big bucks. Absolutely not. If you don't have an equipment, you are going to get paid $200 an hour. If you have the equipment, then you get paid $310 an hour. So there's no excuse to be broke, because even if you don't live in Massachusetts, right now, I look up the flights right now, they're $119. Okay? They're $119. Trust me, I would have dropped everything if I could and go, even though I don't know anything about snow and I hate the cold. $210 an hour? Come on. Give me all the hours. Oh my God. So guys, definitely, if you are in the lookout for a job, if you're in a financial strain because of C-19, the lockdowns, all the craziness, turkeys being $89, you know, go to Massachusetts for like 3 weeks and work like 100 hours a week or 80 hours a week, and you'll be okay. Okay. Now, guys, that has been all for the majority of the news. I have more news, but they're on my page. Like I said, follow me on Instagram so you can keep up, because there's a lot of things happening. And another thing that I want to share before I leave, I almost forgot. One thing that I wanted to share with you guys is something that literally broke my heart. It's very sad that we're seeing this happening right now, and it's in Medellin, Colombia. It's been raining in Colombia like crazy. There's a lot of mudslides happening in Medellin, and people are losing their homes. A lot of people have lost their homes, their businesses, their vehicles, their belongings. And I don't know if everyone's okay or if there's people missing, but this is what's happening.
Y las dos motos que se llevó, ¿a dónde estarán estancadas?
So a lot of images are circulating regarding the situation in Colombia. Like I said, I don't know yet if they have any way that we can help or support what's happening right now in the city of Medellin. Like I said, it's really, really sad. And I've seen a lot of heartbreaking videos. It's insane. Yeah, Morena, if you pray, like Johnny Mills and Morena said, pray for Colombia. I'm going to research a little bit more what's being done, like I did for the protests that they were having. If there's any way we can send help, aid, money, whatever we can send to help them, I will look it up, and I'll bring you guys the information next Saturday on my other stream. But definitely is extremely sad what's happening. And like I said, a lot of people have lost everything because of this. Um, so guys, that has been all for news today. There's more things happening. Like I said, you can go visit my page and find everything that's happening. It's a lot, and I don't want to stretch this too much because it's about to be an hour, and I want to hear from you guys your opinions on what we're going to discuss. But before we do that, let's move to something more exciting. Yes, guys, we did it. We freaking did it. Puerto Rico did it. We don't only have an MVP, but we also have one player that has taken the Atlanta Braves to stardom, winning the MLB championship for Atlanta. And that is from Guayama, Puerto Rico, Eddie Rosario. Yes, Eddie Rosario has been one of the most notorious figures from the Atlanta Braves, doing amazing things and playing insanely, just like Puerto Rican people know how to do. And like I said, I know Dominicans are better at baseball. I understand, but sorry, not this year. This year belongs to us. We needed this win, and Eddie Rosario brought it home, and I'm very proud. Shout out to all my Puerto Rican friends, family, Latin explainers, cyber friends, cyber extended family out there. It's time for us, get a drink, open a beer, open a medalla, even though they taste like crap. But shout out to all the Puerto Rican people. I am so proud of Eddie Rosario and his accomplishment in the MLB. To be honest with you, he's not the only one doing this type of stuff. There's a lot of Puerto Ricans exceeding a lot in the MLB lately. We also have Correa doing the same thing. We have obviously my favorite, Yadier Molina. We have Javi Baez, Kike Hernandez. We have several figures that have been being literally MLB royalty. And I know we have had people like that in the past, but I'm talking about now, new. And it's time for us to give them a little bit more of recognition. And like I said, it was something that warmed my heart a lot and made me super proud to see that there is a Puerto Rican actually putting nuestro nombre en alto. Okay, so I am sorry. Jose says, shout out for the Braves. They are this year's champs. Next year, the Yankees are not going to win. They're not going to win. Morena says Puerto Rico in my Fat Joe voice. Ramon says ganaron los Braves. Yep. MK said wepa. Definitely. Radical says that's right. We did it as an honorary Puerto Rican. I'm so proud. Oh my God. Come on. Radical. Ramon is like, Jose, don't start with the Yankees. Yeah, absolutely. No, the Yankees. Moonchaser agrees. To be honest with you, like I said, I am very proud. And I said that wasn't enough. There is more Puerto Rican greatness right now happening. Also, tomorrow, I know a lot of you guys have heard me talk a lot about the Capitanes from Arecibo, from the BSN, which is the Baloncesto Superior Nacional in Puerto Rico. Tomorrow, they will have their final game, and I'm so grateful it's not in Quebradillas, because you guys know how Quebradillas gets, but it's going to be between the Arecibo Capitanes and the Mets from Guaynabo. This last game tied the whole series, the final series between the Arecibo Capitanes and the Mets from Guaynabo, to the point that Mets won that game by 15 freaking points. It was an explosive game. I don't know if you guys watch it, but it's time to watch it, because trust me, it was a great game. And one thing I would say is that, in my opinion, you can disagree all you want, but in my opinion, I think Arecibo will bring this one home. If you're a Guaynabicho, then of course you're going to think the Mets are going to win. But I think that the Capitanes from Arecibo are the champions of this year. Let me know in the chat if you think that they will win. In my opinion, like I said, tomorrow is the game, is the final game. So get your popcorn ready, get your medallas, even if they taste like crap, ready. Fry some bacalaitos and watch the freaking game. So definitely, guys, that has been all for sports. Let's keep it moving so that we can get to the main topic. Oh boy, Raul Alejandro. Raul Alejandro, I don't know if you guys know who Raul Alejandro is. Raul Alejandro started his career, I believe, when he was 26 or 25 years old. He has had this new approach to things. He's one of the first Puerto Ricans in this new era of the género urbano that actually started dancing the music that he sang, and actually can sing. I'm not saying that he's Luis Fonsi. I'm not saying that he's Adele. I'm saying he can actually sing. Okay, hold your horses. I'm not saying he's Whitney. He just can't sing. It's just as simple as that. But he can also incorporate his crazy dances that mirror a lot those of his idol Chris Brown. They recently did a collaboration together. If you haven't listened to it, I will literally encourage you to do so. It's actually pretty cool. And they actually look like siblings. If you don't understand what I'm saying, let me tell you, there's a lot of African Americans here that have, and even Americans that have a doppelganger in Latin America, okay? And Chris Brown and Raul Alejandro are just that. They look very similar. They look like each other a lot. And their collab was amazing. But in this case, I want to highlight that according to Top 40 Spain, Raul Alejandro is considered the best urban artist in Latin America right now. And Raul Alejandro had his award not only for the best song, but he also had it for the best urban artist in Latin America. And I want you guys to hear what he has to say when he sings very nicely. I mean, not like Whitney, to his fans when he receives his award.
Contigo quiero despertar, hacerlo después de fumar, ya no tengo nada que buscar. Tú combinas con el mar, ese bikini se ve fenomenal, no hay gravedad que me puede leer.
So basically, he was thanking his fans. Yeah, it's like Johnny says he do, just like Chris Brown. Absolutely. Give me 1 second, guys. So yeah, definitely, guys. Like I said, I feel very proud for Raul Alejandro. We have seen him come from just doing. To be honest with you, I don't listen to Raul Alejandro a lot. In my opinion, Raul Alejandro is more than urban. He's more versatile. And the songs that I like about him are, to be honest, Pamela says Puerto Rico's Chris Brown. Absolutely. Hi, crazy boy. Crazy boy. I'm joking. I'm joking. No, but seriously, Raul Alejandro has had some missed hits, but he has had a lot of great songs, and I think he's the one of the most promising upcoming talents, up there with almost up there with Mike Towers. Almost, okay. Don't come for me if you're a Mike Towers fan. Don't come for me. I get it. Mike Towers is great, but Raul Alejandro is on his path to be up there with Mike Towers, unlike Jay Cortez, who can actually not sing. Now, guys, that has been all for music today. Let's keep this show going. Guys, the main topic, Puerto Rico for Dummies. And before I start today, I see that there's several people in the chat. I want to encourage everybody. Like I said, I don't necessarily ask for people to contribute financially because I know not everybody's in a position to do so. I'm very grateful for the ones that can, but I'm going to ask for everybody to actually hit that like button because it doesn't cost you anything, but it also helps the platform to grow. So if you're in the chat and you haven't liked the video because you got excited to actually see what I'm talking about, thank you very much, but hit that like button, okay? Well, Latin explainers, let's go right into the main topic. And one thing I would say is that a lot of people, one of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of people have is Puerto Rico, is it a state? Is it a territory? Is it a colony? What Puerto Rico is. And obviously that stems from the fact that a lot of Puerto Ricans are US citizens, but we don't get to vote for the president. We don't get to do a lot of things. We have imposed on us like a lot of crazy laws that affect Puerto Ricans in many, many, many ways. And those laws do not affect the states because we're not necessarily considered a state. And I find it funny that a lot of people, when I talk about the system of colonies, they refuse to believe and understand that Puerto Rico is a colony. A lot of people love to call it, including people in the White House and the President of the United States, no matter who is in office, loves to call Puerto Rico a territory. And that's something that pisses me off because we are not a territory. We are actually a colony. And to prove my point, I revisited the actual official definitions of what a territory and a colony is. And I want to share it with you guys. And I want you guys to let me know if you think the same way I do. A territory basically is an area of land under the jurisdiction of a ruler or a state. And a colony is a country or area under the full or partial political control of another country, typically a distant one, and occupied by settlers from that country. And another thing that I found was that the difference between a colony and a territory is that a colony is a settlement of immigrants or emigrants who have moved to a place but remain culturally tied to their original place of origin, while the territory is a large extent or tract of land, a region, a country, a district. And one thing that people don't seem to understand is that, first of all, the initial people that discovered America or discovered Puerto Rico was not Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus came to Puerto Rico in 1492 on his second trip to the New World and discovered Puerto Rico, which was called San Juan Bautista, which is where we get the name of our capital city, which is San Juan, Puerto Rico. And eventually, because they discovered a lot of gold, Puerto Rico was called Puerto Rico, which is rich port, and a lot of gringos love to say Puerto Rico because they don't know how to pronounce Puerto Rico. So going back, to that, the original owners of Borinquen or the Boricua land or whatever you want to call it, or home, were the Taínos. The Taínos arrived in Puerto Rico almost 1,000 years before Christopher Columbus came. So of course they were almost annihilated, and they were suspected to be almost close to 2 million. But they were completely obliterated by the massive exploitation that the Spanish Empire imposed on Taínos. And Taínos did not have a lot of life expectancy. It is believed, according to anthropologists, that the Taínos, I'm sorry, had a life expectancy of 45 to 48 years old. So of course, when you impose onto them, hi there, Ward, how are you? When you impose on them a lot of harsh labor, like the cities that they had to build, especially the city of San Juan Bautista, that killed them. And later on in the early 2000s, there was a lot of reports when we started repaving the city of San Juan, old San Juan, because the pavers were getting old and uneven and whatnot. And they're still uneven because they fucked up that work. They botched it. We started recovering a lot of skeletons that were later studied, and those were those of Taínos. When that happened, they brought in new workers, and those workers that replaced the Taino fellows that were mostly dead or sick were Africans. And to be honest with you, they did the same exploitation that they did to the Tainos, but African people are known to be stronger and more durable. So, of course, they survived that tyranny and that brutality, and they started to repel the Spanish Empire a lot more. Obviously, because they knew what freedom was. So, of course, they started repelling that. A lot of them matched with the leftover Tainos, and a lot of them matched with some Spaniards that believed that the Spanish Empire was cruel and brutal. And that's what formed this beautiful people called el puertorriqueño, el boricua. And with that being said, Puerto Rico's original culture was the Taino culture. And that culture is almost non-existent. Therefore, the African and Spaniard culture combined with what was left over of the Taino culture is what formed our little culture today. So by definition, if we go back to what a colony is called, right, and the difference between a colony and a territory, Africans still brought their culture and kept it within them, and it translated into everything that is called Puerto Rico today. We have words like Bemba, for example, in our dialect in Puerto Rico. There are direct words from the African descent, and there's a lot of parts of the culture in Puerto Rico that basically come straight from Africa, and Africans were able to preserve that in Puerto Rico till this day. So of course, by that definition, Puerto Rico was and it still is a colony. I don't care what people say. We also get treated like that. We're not just a large extent of tract of land or anything like that. We're still a colony, and we will forever be a colony unless we are set free and left to our own devices. So I hope that clarifies a lot of the confusion that people don't understand. Why we say that Puerto Rico is a colony, no matter if we behave or not like a colony, Puerto Rico is still a colony under the American rule. Now, moving from that, what you mean literally everything, Wananako Sardine? Let me know. So basically, one thing that I would say is that after in 1837, I'm sorry, in 1837, the Spanish Empire, after getting a lot of issues with the upcoming United States of America and Mexico and the rebellions that they were facing in many different places in the New World, they started getting depleted, and because they didn't use properly all the wealth that they acquired in the New World, they started getting a lot of backlash from the people and a lot of resistance. And it was contrary to popular belief, and this is something that you can check me on this, but I will always believe it is this way because of the order of its succession. In my opinion, one of the biggest countries aside from Guanaco saying says Taínos were not as strong as my Mesoamerican ancestors who are still the majority in that region. It's not about strong or not. It's about how the topography of Puerto Rico is. Most of Puerto Rico is cayos, which is caves, mountains, and whatnot, and the rest is completely flat. A lot of Taínos stayed in the flat, and some of them went into the interior part of the island eventually. But because we're not such a stronghold, like, for example, the Mayan cities and the Aztecas and whatnot, and the Incas, a lot of our people unfortunately had to die. The same thing happened with Anacaona. But Anacaona fought till the end. It's just that unfortunately, Spaniards did not necessarily landed in Mexico. They did not necessarily landed in South America. They landed in La Española. They landed there. That was the strategic point, and that was the first place where they all came. So because they explored that the first, of course, they're going to flood it with a lot of cannons and a lot of gunpowder and a lot of things. And still till this day, you might say whatever you want, but to be honest with you, I'm sorry. Uh, to be honest with you, the Spanish Empire still had its way with our people, regardless of Mesoamericans and whatnot. If you don't believe me, try to tell me what the history was before, during those years that the Spanish Empire was there, and even before. There's a lot of things that till this day, Mesoamericans are fighting France for a lot of their ancestry and a lot of their history and a lot of their artifacts that are being auctioned away to strangers with money. So let's just not start this whole competition of like who's better and who's not, because at the end of the day, all of Latinos are colonized people and are the bastards of this Spanish war against indigenous people, regardless of who you are. Otherwise, you will be talking, you will be talking that way, and you're not. Now, let's go back to what we were talking. So, basically, back to what I was saying. After that happened, and after the war was won by Mexico, that they won over the Spanish Empire, kicking those assholes out of their land. The USA, the Spanish American War, actually was won too for the state of Florida and adjacent areas and whatnot. So Spain was in a tough position, and they decided, hey, we can provide for people like Cuba, for people like Philippines, Puerto Rico, and other colonies that they had. So we're going to just release them because we can't actually keep them. So according to the world law during those times, you could not release colonies that you had subdued in the past without any proper form of structure and hierarchy and even currency and commerce. So they signed a treaty that they were going to establish um, basically a structure and a hierarchy in those colonies, and they were going to grant them independency later on. And that was supposed to be granted by Spain in 1897. And that's what established the Puerto Rican peso. And the Puerto Rican peso and a lot of other things that were established, like our government, our commerce, we started creating more things and manufacturing a little bit more things to establish commerce, not only with Latin America, but with the world. That's what was giving a lot of the currency in Puerto Rico a lot of progress, and it was increasing. And as if that wasn't enough, then the Treaty of Paris happened, of Paris, France, in 1897 to settle the Spanish American War. Spain and the United States of America went to France. And to be honest with you, they did not invite nobody participating from the Spanish colonies to actually be present when they were signing this treaty. And what basically Spain did was hand over the colonies without bringing an awareness to the Americans of what they were doing, and without actually ensuring the word that they gave our people. And I'm not only talking about Puerto Rico. The same thing happened for Cuba, which is why Cuba and Puerto Rico have united in the past many, many times. We see an example of El Grito de Yares and the Grito de Yara. One was successful, the other one wasn't, simply because we were going through the same situations. Now, one group of people that was included in that same situation but had a different outcome was the Philippines, because they managed that problem in a different way, and that's another whole stream. But going back to 1898, at that point, the United States invaded Puerto Rico through the southwest part of the island. And basically, at first, they started saying, we're going to bring progress, we're going to bring development, we're going to help the people, we are good, we're not going to do anything whatsoever, blah, 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 blah. And people believe them. How do we know this? We know this because we have visited I have visited, I don't know about y'all, but I have visited the writings of one of my favorite personas, and one of my favorite Puerto Ricans, which is the maestro Pedro Albizu Campos. And he explains in his memoirs how he was very much pro-Yankee, pro-gringo, because he believed that at first they were going to bring progress, success, and development to the island of Puerto Rico. So definitely, definitely, he was very much pro them. So he started noticing a lot of things were kind of weird, to the point that if you didn't know that now, knew that then, you're gonna know it now. Pedro Albizu Campos went very young, at a very young age. He enlisted in the army to serve the country that was gonna bring his people a lot of progress. And for those who do not know, Pedro Albizu Campos was his parents came from Venezuela, but he was born and raised in Puerto Rico. And at the time of this illegal invasion or illegal occupation of the United States, Pedro Albizu Campos was 8 years old. So he was just a child. And when he joined, in his memoirs, he revisited his time in the army, and he realized that when he started talking to the people, he was grouped with the Negroes. And basically, when he started asking questions why they're segregating us depending on how we look, it was when the Negroes at that time started explaining Pedro Albizu Campos that himself was a Negro. So of course they were going to group him with his people, and he started asking more questions. And then he started understanding when he came back home, and he started seeing how Americans started denigrating the morale of our people by placing a lot of cartoons that were denigrating our morale, like putting Uncle Sam, like I have showed before. I think I still have the overlay here. But he started noticing how a lot of the things that were happening to the Puerto Ricans was as a result of our race. That was something that was placed on the newspaper back when the United States was invading the island. And those four kids represent African Americans, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and I think Cuba, if I'm not mistaken. But definitely, you see, Uncle Sam is teaching very harshly the four quote unquote savage races how to become Americanized. And if you see in the back, you have all the white kids that are portrayed to be educated, very literate, and whatnot. And they're not like the savages, and Uncle Sam is not bothering them. And in the background, you see another person of color wiping the windows clean. So basically, this image is very, very, very telling. And trust me, just like this one, there was a lot of other images making fun of Puerto Ricans. And that's when Pedro Albizu Campos he started basically understanding this, and he decided to take matters into his own hands. That's another image. Basically, if you don't know, the our national symbol, like for our people, is called the Jibaro. And basically, that was another portrayal of Uncle Sam, in this case, Abraham Lincoln, giving the Jibaro the American clothing so that he can become a non-savage person. Those were images that were drawn in the early 1900s to represent the Puerto Rican. So basically, another thing that I wanted to point out was that after that, Pedro Albizu Campos is known for going into law school. He went into Harvard and became the first Black man to graduate with honors. And he said that even at Harvard, he was placed under a lot of scrutiny. He faced a lot of racism. There was a lot of things that happened while he was there, and it was not pleasant. And he started going and visiting a lot of the things that he was seeing happening, and why his people did not had a lot of rights if Americans actually wanted to help the people of Puerto Rico, and what they wanted was to develop the island, which was not true. I see that Culturally Castizo says Pedro Albizu Campos was huge on education too. As he graduated from Harvard University as lawyer back home, he charged the people very little for advice. He became very national as he got older. Absolutely, Pedro Albizu Campos is, like I said, one of my favorite, if not the favorite, Puerto Rican person to me. So basically, Pedro Albizu Campos became notorious because he brought back his knowledge to the island and started explaining to the Jibaros what was going on, because a lot of people did not understand that. They did not understand why Puerto Rico sent more people to World War II than the state of New York. They did not understand why we were treated in the way we were treated, why we had to put our hours in a libreta and we had to work nonstop, why we were submitted to a lot of experiments for quote unquote health, why our women went through a lot of shit with the United States. And he started explaining this to a lot of women. And a lot of men also started coming into his camp. And he formed what is known today as the Partido Nacionalista de Puerto Rico. And basically, what he wanted was to denounce the tyranny that the United States enforced our people to go through. There's even archives documenting how Americans sometimes will see a Puerto Rican on the street, strip them of their clothes, and make them climb palm trees like they were monkeys just to get coconuts so they could drink them and whatnot. There was a lot of abuse going on. And thanks to Albizu Campos, we started having a dog in the fight and becoming more literate when it came to legal aspects of our status with our new frenemies called the Americans. Now, one thing I would say is that he befriended, to a degree, a person that was a journalist that was doing some journalism in New York, and he married this lady. And he also came to Puerto Rico, and the person that he befriended was called Luis Muñoz Marin. Luis Muñoz Marin went deep into politics and became the president of the Senate in 1948. And during that time, what he did is that he familiarized a lot. During that time, he was partying a lot. He developed a lot of addictions, and basically one of those addictions was opioids, morphine, and alcohol. And because that was very costly during that time, and he had to hide so much, he had a lot of outstanding bills in different hotels. The Caribe Hilton, that is still exists today, was one of them. And what happened was that the Albizu Campos his movement was growing, even though there was a lot of massacres, because a lot of gringos started responding with fire to a lot of the protests that Puerto Ricans were doing to actually be set free from the tyranny of the United States. So they started to respond with fire and also kill Puerto Ricans, harass them, kidnap them to never be seen again. And we have the infamous and bloody Ponce massacre. Look it up. As a result of what the Nationalist Party was doing. And the Ponce massacre was basically a peaceful march where the Puerto Rican nationalists, the young people, were protesting on the streets to be rid of the US tyranny. And they were literally just dressed in a specific uniform, and they had literally wooden weapons. It was just wooden weapons. It wasn't rifles. It was just carved wood in a form of a weapon to walk down the street in the city of Ponce. And what the US did was they opened fire on unarmed civilians, and they killed a lot of people. And I said that wasn't enough. They kidnapped more youth out of that, and also killed them at the police prison. But that's another stream. going back to Luis Muñoz Marin, because of that, the Americans realized, hey, people, there's a lot of civil unrest, there's a lot of things happening, we have to do something. And now people know what we're doing, they're becoming more educated, they know what's going on. And basically they say we have to hand over the baton and let people vote for their own governor, to give them a sense of autonomy, even though it was never intended to be real. So they actually needed to name an administrator that was from Puerto Rican descent to administer the colony for them, so that they could make peace with Puerto Ricans, or quote unquote peace. And basically what happened was that the FBI, after they disclosed these documents, you can find this documentation yourself. After 2001, they did a release on the FBI documents for the public to see. What they did is that the FBI surveillance Luis Muñoz Marin, and started digging up all of his dirt, and basically placed an extortion on him around 1948. And they said, we want you to become the next governor, and this is what you got to do. And Luis Muñoz Marin decided that that's what he wanted to do. And one of the first things that he uh, did as a governor was support the imprisonment of Albizu Campos, which became a rebel and notorious terrorist, being removed from the Harvard records forever as a terrorist. And he was placed in the Paseo La Princesa prison. And we all know that Luis Muñoz Marin could hear his friends screaming at the top of his lungs, being tortured. You can also find evidence of the Pedro Albizu Campos torture with radiation on the book Plutonium Files. To be honest with you, also Cubans came to his aid, and they confirmed, and it's documented even with pictures, that Pedro Albizu Campos was indeed tortured with radiation. And there was only 18 American prisoners that were tortured the same way as Albizu Campos. And in 1965, he passed away to his illness, and Luis Muñoz Marin signed away the island, and basically created this whole status alongside with the United States that is called the Estado Libre Asociado, the Free Associate State. And that is the status that we currently have. And it's been 123 years that we have had this status. And also it was to replace the concept of a colony. Now, I want to remind people that, to be honest with you, also in 1948, before Luis Muñoz Marin became the governor, there was something going on, because I know a lot of people also have the complaint, like, why you Boricuas always have the flag everywhere you go? There was a point in history, 1948, where we were imposed the gag law. The gag law was basically that if you had any talks regarding Puerto Rico, even inside your house, if you were displaying the Puerto Rican flag, you were going to get picked up by the feds and placed under a 10-year sentence, never to be seen again in 10 years, simply because you're talking about that, or you're talking against the American empire. And that's why when we were free to do whatever the hell we wanted with our flag, you see a lot of Puerto Ricans that resisted that, and we portray that flag wherever we go. So now, modern era. Another reason why, and I see a lot of people are like, yeah, we're listening to history. There's a lot of things that have transpired. And to be honest with you, one thing that is very, very sad is that a lot of Puerto Ricans, just like the way they didn't catch up with what happened with Luma Energy, it's the same thing that happened in 2017. A lot of us, and I include myself because I also was in the island during that time, in 2007 and 2008, a lot of Puerto Ricans supported Barack Obama, because for us, it was the first time we saw a president that looked like us that was going to run for office. So we all supported Barack Obama, and he became like this totem for all Puerto Ricans in the island. And in the primaries, we supported him through and through because he told us, yes, we can. What we didn't knew is that in 2016, unfortunately, we were going to have look at Blow Moon. This sounds like a college lecture, then it should become an adjunct professor. Trust me, history is another one of my passions, but no, I'm not a professor. There's 11 educators in my family. Come on, of course I'm gonna know history. Anyway, Obama, what people did not know is that in 2017, when Puerto Rico could not pay back all the loans that our corrupt officials took to be able to embezzle billions of dollars from the people, what happened is that Obama, instead of granting us the Chapter 9 that every state, like the state of Florida, has, which is basically bankruptcy, instead of granting us that, what he did is that he said, now Puerto Ricans, you guys, I'm going to take away your free associate state status, and I'm going to bring you back to the old colony ways that you had. And if you think I'm blowing this out of proportion, I promise I will explain. To be honest with you, in the past, we had the authority to vote for elected officials that, even though they were the administrators of the colony, in the past, at least they will have a say on how the money was spent, how the taxpayer money was spent. When Obama came to Puerto Rico, and people celebrate it to this day, you cannot speak ill of Obama in Puerto Rico because a lot of people will attack you. So even till this day, we don't understand what he came to do. What Obama did was that he came to the island and he asked Alejandro Garcia Padilla, which was our governor back then, he asked him if he had the $5 billion that we were supposed to pay. And he said no. So immediately, according to venture capitalists that bought the debt that we had, the national debt, unfortunately, they inflated this debt to the point that it is today, which is $56 billion plus interest, which makes $78 billion that we owe these venture capitalists. So what he did is that he said, okay, no problem, because you guys don't know how to administer the colony. I'm going to take that right away from you, and I'm going to implement an oversight board that you guys are going to have to pay for, and it's going to be a people appointed by the President of the United States that is going to dictate from now on indefinitely until the debt is paid, is going to administer the colony for you and tell you what to spend and what not to spend. Now, a lot of people come from me when I say that we're back in colonial years because they don't understand this specific term. The only reason Albizu Campos laid his life, and all the nationalists and Filiberto Ojeda and Lolita Lebron and all these people laid their lives and put them on the line was for us to have the authority at least to govern ourselves and administer our own taxpayer money. Now we have, back like we was before 1952, we have gringos and outsiders like Natalie Yaresko, which comes from Ukraine, and she was fired from Ukraine from being a sucky politician. We have people like her running the oversight board at a hefty cost of $80 million per year. Yes, you heard right, $80 million per year. At that cost, the oversight board regulates how we spend every cent. And that is the same oversight board that has taken away the pensions from our people that serve 30 plus years in the public sector, that is taking away the money for the restructuring of the island, is taking away the retirement fund of the police, is taking away all the money from everybody, because what they're doing is that you're not going to get that money, Puerto Rican. Work more, because your retirement fund, your pension is going to pay the national debt that you did not got to enjoy. And that is how Puerto Rico is right now. And that's why when you go over there right now, I'm sorry to say this, and I know a lot of Puerto Ricans are gonna hate me for this, but in all honesty, if you go to the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico is starting to look more like the Dominican Republic than the Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic is thriving, and we're sucking at it. Simply because we're paying a lot of people to screw us in the ass to the point that Puerto Ricans cannot afford even $150 emergency. And that is the sad reality of my people. Now, guys, there is a lot more to discuss. And to be honest with you, I think that Puerto Rico is very prone for an uprising. We're seeing massive strikes. Police officers are literally having the blue flu every 2 weeks. The power grid is not working. We're seeing this blatant corruption. Right now, our politicians are deciding not to disclose or audit the debt because obviously people like Hernández Colón, Pedro Rosselló, Ricky Rosselló, Luis Fortuño, Sila María Calderón, Aníbal Acevedo Vilá, which has been our previous governors that administered very poorly the colony and just decided to use their power to benefit themselves from the taxpayers' money and the privileges that they got, which was access to ask loans against the taxpayers' money, basically have bankrupt the U.S. colony, and now Puerto Ricans are paying for their mistakes because that's basically what they do. And to be honest with you, we're not having it. And that's why the Puerto Rican population here in the United States is growing every freaking day. The diaspora is bigger than the actual Puerto Ricans in the island. And something I want to say to a lot of, because I know there is something going on with the New Yorkers and the Philly Ricans and the Florida Ricans and the Cali Ricans and the Texas Ricans and all the freaking Ricans. And I'm going to say it because we're talking about Puerto Rico. I know that there is a lot of things going on every time that you guys come visit us. And I'm going to say this as an islander, and I'm pretty sure that all the islanders feel the same way. We don't have time to hate on y'all. I know it's going to sound cold, but I know that a lot of y'all think that we have the time, while you guys had to come here and fight many fights that we don't know nothing about. And I've realized that myself as an islander. We don't know enough about the young lords. We don't know enough about the racism that you faced here. We don't know enough about all the shit that happened in the Bronx. We don't know a lot of shit that happened when you guys were establishing in Florida. The same way that we don't know all these things. There's a lot of things that you guys don't know about. But in reality, islanders don't feel any type of way about the Rican diaspora. We don't have the time to hate you. We just don't. We are extremely, extremely underwater to be able to have the time over coffee to hate on fellow Ricans. So that nonsense that you come in thinking that we hate you has to stop. People get offended because we look at them when they speak to us in English. And in reality, 82% of your people in the island do not know English. So they will assume you are a gringo unless you say otherwise. Chill the fuck out and let's work together, because there could not be a Rican without Puerto Rico. And it's time for the nonsense and the stupidity to stop. This has become very real. Right now, we're being attacked in every single corner. I see that Danny says, wait, so you're telling us that these YouTube historians are wrong? Dios mío, we've been praying. Absolutely. I'm fed up. I've seen a lot of people criticizing Puerto Ricanos from the island. Honestly, I've never in my fucking life grew up to know that I'm supposed to hate the Rican diaspora. All I knew about the Rican diaspora was that you guys had to come here in very inhumane conditions to work your ass off, facing a lot of racism, and you stayed here because you couldn't afford to come back, and simply because you were not going to abandon the life you built here to come back home. And most of the people that have Rican family, coming from like my standpoint, you were always missed. And it's time for us to understand that as Puerto Ricans. I don't care if you're here in China. If you call yourself Puerto Rican, it's time for you to fulfill that duty. I don't care if you do it with a can of salsa, but you have to help the island. It's time for us to reclaim our island. I see that Blood Moon says, I thought English was mandated in Puerto Rico. It's mandated in schools, but not knowing the language. We don't communicate in English. We absolutely don't communicate in English. Don't believe me? Travel over there, try to speak English to everybody. So, even Melanated Night could barely talk to people over there because not a lot of people know English. Now, one thing I would say, guys, I hope that not only this has served as an educational tool. I don't like to get into a lot of intricacies and stupidity. Look at MK, he's like, that's what happened to me. Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to get into a lot of the intricacies, but you guys get the overall picture. I hope that this stream serves as a starting point on us as Ricans having the actual conversation. Because look at Donnie, YouTube is alive. We need to have the conversation. We need to come up with a plan to recover our island, and we have to find a way. And one thing I want to point out is that you don't have to come back if you don't want to actually help. One thing I would say that I think our Rican diaspora can do. You guys are here, including myself. We're very close to the White House. We're very close to politicians that are basically ruining our island. Let's start with the letters. Let's start with making them uncomfortable. Let's start with making the phone calls. Let's start with putting pressure on things that we want to see. And let's start going for the people that actually is trying to guarantee that our culture will not be erased, because that's basically what's going to happen. And for the state taps, and if you don't know what a state tip is, there's two movements in Puerto Rico. One is pro-colonialism, which is pro-statehood, and the other one is pro-independence or anti-colonialism, which is pro the independence and emancipation from the United States. So to be honest with you, a lot of people love to attack. I used to be pro-colonialism. I used to vote for pro-colonialism. That's literally how I was. I was ignorant, stupid. I knew better. I thought that there was no way we could be independent until I started seeing the stupidity. So at 21 years old, I literally changed the way I thought because of that, because I felt that myself. So to be honest with you, for the state debts that think that, oh, you can't erase the culture if you become a state, I want you to actually name me one single state in America that the culture is a monolith and it's preserved and being taught in schools. Ay, Morena, mija, vívete tu cumpleaños. Tranquila. So definitely, like I said, statehood will erase the Rican. We won't no longer have a home. And if you want to compare it to a specific group that has been fighting the same fights as us, look at African Americans. They were displaced from their motherland, brought here, and now people try to shame them after they fought all of these fucking little wars. People shame them for having no land. Isn't that the same shit? That's why I keep telling a lot of Latinos, we love to shame on African Americans, but we seem to love their path because we're trying to go where they come from. They're moving forward, but we're going back to where they come from. We're going all the way down to the plantation, and they left the plantation many years ago. So, like I said, it's up to you guys to decide how you want to continue this path. I hope that you want to rescue the island. I hope that you actually feel that little Rican in you, boxing in the air, shadow boxing. and start doing little things, baby steps. I don't care what you do. And start talking to people about what's going on in the island. But I'm telling you, the island is in shambles. Mountains are being destroyed. The coastline is going to shed. People are stealing money. Corporations are coming in to exploit your people. Medicine is being tested on Puerto Ricans as we speak. The schools are literally all fucked up. More than 600 schools have closed down. Now they're threatening to close the universities of Puerto Rico, the only way where people can acquire a proper and literate title in the public sector, and they can afford it to get out of poverty. Hospitals are down. The only trauma center in a hospital in Centro Médico is closing down. So if you get shot in the island, you're going to die. I get it. Coquito is delicious, but it's time for us to actually put in the work so that our future generations and the kids of your kids of your kids can actually enjoy Coquito while listening to fucking Plena. I see that Danny says, that's the thing with YouTube and freedom of speech. You have people who tell the truth and people who spew garbage, and most people listen to garbage. Absolutely. They listen to garbage until it's too late. There is an analogy that I want to use before I let people in. And it's basically arces. Arces, basically, they have a very short sight. Like, have you ever, and even deer, they have a very short sight. Like their sight is very short-sighted. And the reason why people run them over, you might think, is because they are dumb. They are not dumb. They're actually very intelligent people. The problem is that they see only in close range. And by the time they realize something is going to hit them, it's too freaking late. And that is basically what's happening to our people. It's time to wake up. Despierta, Boricua. Now, guys, maybe you have something to contribute. Maybe you think I'm talking shit. Maybe you think you can do it better. I'm going to put the link in the chat. So whoever wants to come in can come in, jump in and talk. No, not you. Not you. Oh, my God. But, guys, before I let people in, I want to remind you guys to follow me on Instagram, because a lot of times I post a lot of things that are happening not only in Latin America, but also in our Latin diaspora here in the United States. Or sometimes I just post things for fun. So make sure you follow me on Instagram, Denise Gonzalez Del Villegas 1, so that you can keep up with everything that I do and everything that's happening in Latin America. And guys, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. It's 3:33 here in steamy Satan's asshole, California. I will be back at 3:38 to hear from whoever wants to jump in. Like I said, you're more than welcome to come in and express your thoughts. Either you agree, you disagree, you have an idea. Whatever it is you wanna, you have a question also in the chat. If you don't want to come off, but you have a question that you want me to answer, or anyone from the panel, make sure that you put it down, and I will make my best to get to it. Now, guys, let's take a 5-minute break. Hold on. Let's take a 5-minute break, and I will be back at 3:38. Okay, so get your drinks, Morena. Get all of the drinks, Morena. Get all of the drinks. Get your drinks, get your snacks, get your popcorn, and we will be back in 5 minutes. Okay, guys? I'll see you guys then. we are back. We are back. We are back, people. Before I let people in, you guys know I always do this. Remember that the views and the statements of the guests do not necessarily represent those of the channel and or those of the panel members, as some comments may be offensive to select groups of people. And also, I want to remind you that by calling into the live show, you waive your rights to the use of your image and likeness for the purposes of the show. Now, without any further ado, let's welcome the mayor of Parkchester, the man that walks himself and graces us all the time with his wisdom, coming directly from the city where you go and you never die, Parkchester, New York, Jose, and also the one, the only, the best, your boy, the number one on every podcast, Radical Latino. What's
Good
up?
evening, everybody.
Yeah.
First of all, right now it's 47 degrees here in New York, and it's going down to 39 degrees. So I'm happy I'm not in LA right now.
Oh my God. Oh, my fellow Boricua. ¿Cómo estás, Ramón? ¿Qué pasó?
Okay.
Well, se fueron. Se lo llevaron los State Tips. The State Tips took Ramón and Radical.
The mix.
Can you hear me? No, I'm here.
Sí, te podemos escuchar. Oh, they brought you guys back.
Yeah. For a moment, I was out because I was clicking off the other tab. So, hey, how you guys doing? ¿Cómo está, chica?
Bien, bien. Aquí cocinándome en California.
Cocinando. Yeah, but I don't understand. Isn't it supposed to be a little more chilly now?
No, aquí estoy yo como un pastel.
Ah, carajo.
Denise, don't you wish you're in New York right now?
Hell no.
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 But don't you have the beach nearby? I forgot this mud over there.
The pond? You mean the ass pond that we have in Colorado Beach? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a shoreline full of mud. I mean, I wouldn't want you to. Yeah. No, I got you. I understand why you don't go to the beach over there. I mean, it's supposed to be nice, but
I sit on the sand at my own risk.
We're spoiled. We come from the best shorelines in the world, so we're kind of spoiled when we go somewhere else. I mean, it's basically the water is all brown and very unappealing.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So, guys,
you should come, Ramon. You should come to Chocha Beach.
That's Orchard Beach.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Orchard Beach is also known as Chocha Beach, and
Radical. Radical. Don't do that to Denise. You're gonna scare her from coming to New York.
But it's the most cleanest beach in the city.
Yes.
It is. It's the most cleanest beach in the city. You probably, if you would have probably gone there like around the 90s, you probably would have got all the hepatitis in the water. But now there's only like probably two hepatitis up in the water. But it's the most cleanest beach. So I definitely recommend if you come to New York, go to Orchard Beach, Denise.
Oh my God, no, hell no. That name is not enticing.
And Denise is not far from Parkchester.
Oh no, gross. No, I'm good. I have stepped foot in the cleanest, most beautiful ocean and beaches in the world. No, thank you, but no. Now, guys, what do you guys think? And welcome, Rakim. What do you guys have on today's topic, Puerto Rico for Dummies?
Well, first of all, the fact of the matter is, Puerto Rico is a glorified colony. I mean, let's keep it real, okay? And it's amazing what has happened in the island. And I said this in the chat, and I'm going to say it again. When these politicians run again, or they decide to run for re-election, we need to remember these things and vote these idiots out of office and try to find someone that's halfway normal, that their brain cells haven't died yet.
Yeah, that's why I bring a lot of awareness to people like Juan Dalmau, Eliezer Molina. I don't care. It's some people that you have to look into and support. I supported Juan Dalmau, but I have no problems with Eliezer Molina winning. Absolutely not. So definitely something that I wish people more look into it a little bit more. So Radical, what do you think about today's topic?
Well, as an honorary Puerto Rican, um, I'm going to say it's a Euro supremacy. I'm saying Euro because that's a that's an ethnicity, not a race. Since we're not going to talk about race topics and stuff, so I'm gonna say it's Euro supremacy, and this is basically a play and a very strong statement on what the majority of the country here in the United States and in Latin America is a chess board for the wealthy elites to basically use and abuse the people over there, and I'm glad that you're actually pointing things out and actually calling things out as you rightfully should. There's a lot of things that a lot of people don't know. These are things that people just talk about, you know what I mean? And you're actually pointing these things out, and more power to you. The thing is that I wish there would be a lot more of us to actually do something about it, because these Latin American countries are, again, like I said before, they're chessboards just for the wealthy. So we have to at least do something, or maybe organize in some way in order to combat that. Is there anything that you probably ran across that is close to that?
I'm creating a movement in this past week. Like, I started doing certain things. I don't want to disclose it yet because it's still being cooked. But trust me, I'm creating some stuff so that we can bring the Ricans and the Boricuas together, Boricuas everywhere, so that we can do something about it.
Gotcha. So yeah, because these are the type of things. These are the type of things that should be basically, called out and should be talked about, and should be on the forefront on not only on the news cycles, but in political talks.
Yeah.
Um, we shouldn't be seeing or thinking that, just because we out of sight is out of mind. That's not something that we should be even try to think about. These are the important topics and important problems that we need to tackle first. You know what I mean? Especially in an island that is controlled by the United States, and it's pretty much open door policy for anybody just to go up in there and abuse the people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is basically what we're seeing, not only with Luma Energy, but we saw it when the Puerto Rican telephone company got sold by Pedro Rosselló in the 90s to Claro. We saw it when Luis Fortuño sold the Luis Muñoz Marin to a Mexican corporation. And now it's completely different, and it's taking advantage of the people with all the taxes that they put on you if you want to travel and whatnot. So definitely, like I said, it's crazy. It's very, and it's sad what we're seeing right now, and it's translating into everything Puerto Ricans do. And a lot of agriculture used to be our main source of income, and right now it's down to 2% of the generator of the GDP of the island. Most of the islanders provide services, and that's how they make a living.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna just pass it off to the next person. Yeah.
Okay, Ramon, what are your thoughts?
Eh, the first thing is that I appreciate you letting me on your panel. But you did went over several things. You did cover a lot, and it is unfortunate that we are seeing this situation when it comes to the company that is managing the power grid, and there are a lot of people that can go on and complain about Luma and not being able to manage the power grid. It's going backwards, and I will admit that the AEE may not have been perfect. No, it wasn't. But at least with the AEE, it wasn't really that bad in comparison as to how it's gotten to.
No, absolutely not.
Now.
Absolutely.
I mean, it wasn't perfect. It had its issues. It had its problems. The grid itself has been aging, and what happens is when a hurricane hits the island, what they do is that they patch it up, but they don't upgrade it. They don't make it anything newer. They just patch it up, get it functional, but that's only the next storm hits, the next hurricane hits, and we're having the same problem all over again. And yeah, it may have recovered to a great degree, but I'm sure that there are many places in the countryside where they're not having power, that they are still in the dark. I'm sure. I mean, they are using kind of like temporary measures to have power in certain places, and the problem is not really going to go away until the power grid is properly upgraded. Because this whole thing about the power outages, imagine a hurricane hitting right now with the problems that Luma are already having, and then another hurricane were to hit the island.
But do you know what they said? Luma Energy said that they were ready only for a Category 2 hurricane. And that's nothing. That's nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have proven themselves to be incompetent. They have proven themselves to be incapable of managing the power grid. Unfortunately, something that could have helped is that if there had been a proper bidding process where other different service providers, other managing firms or companies could have placed their own bid, and they could have gone on and negotiated the contracts and the upfront cost for whatever managing firm or company to establish themselves and take over. It would have been a better situation for the island, because when you have different bidders to provide the service, then you can negotiate the cost. You can negotiate that down, and there could have been some savings. But from what I'm hearing, from what I understand, there was no bidding process. So there was only one company that was selected, and they had the contract with the government, and they were able to line up their pockets really well and get all this money, as you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
But it was only one company that had that privilege. I mean, it was kind of like there are details about that we don't know. Apparently, it was kind of like a hookup. It didn't have a fair process of bidding for other companies to be able to take over the power grid. With options comes when bidders compete, Puerto Rico will have won. It will have been better off. But it seems like there was no bidding process. So
no, it was given to it was given to their friends. We know that for sure, because right now, who's defending Luma Energy? Amigos del alma, Ramon. Amigos del alma.
Yeah.
It's literally family members of the politicians in power. Are the lawyers of Luma Energy.
Okay. Yeah. But there should have been a process by law that allowed for bidders in an impartial manner, in a fair manner, that will have worked out better for the island. And it's unfortunate that the process was rigged from the beginning, and the island is the one that is going to get screwed over it. I mean, on top of having to deal with this junta they're lining their pockets too, and they're not doing shit. and they're just taking money out of the island. Whatever little money the island might have, they're taking it out of it, and it's not benefiting the people. They're taking it out of the pension funds. You talked about it already, and the population is the one that are getting screwed over. And
we're talking about 6 people that their salaries are sum up to $1.7 million per year, and we pay even for their entertainment and their traveling. And they were spending $60 million. Now they're spending $80 million.
Yeah. And when you were saying something about bringing back the colonialism. The colonialism never left. The colonialism. Let's establish that fact. The colonial status never went away. It's not coming back because it never went away. It was just renamed. It was just giving another. It was just giving another name. It was proven. It was proven in the last few years that the whole thing about the so-called Commonwealth, because that's supposed to be the translation for the Estadio Libre Asociado, was supposed to be translated as the Commonwealth. No, that was never real. That never happened. Commonwealth is what Canada has with England. That's a Commonwealth. No, that.
Excuse me. I have a question. As far as the political situation in Puerto Rico, is it similar to the United States where you have 2 major parties that's involved that don't do anything, or is it that, or that's a different political situation?
Yes.
No, it's the same. It's the same.
Yes. There are 2 main political parties that are always going back and forth in the tussle, in the struggle for power over the island. But in the end, they're not really doing much, and there are the situation, this problem with the legislators on the island that I understand that they still have the power to raise their own salaries. So you know that they're lining up their pockets, and they're making themselves fucking rich off of the whatever little money out in the coffers of the island. So, but it is 2 main political parties, and whatever other independent party, additional party wants to enter the election process, they make it very, very hard for them because it is set up to benefit the PNP and the PPD. And whatever other I don't know about the PIP, which is the Independence Party, that was never really relevant. It never went nowhere. And I don't know how it was for them. I think they still had a status where they had access to some of the election time funding that the government allows for the political parties to get for their campaigns and all of that. But any other political party that wants to get in the process to be elected in the island, they make it very difficult for them, and it's very arbitrary. And I remember what Alexandra Lugaru was talking about when it came to collecting all of the signatures, all of the endorsements that she had to collect, and they made the process rather difficult for them in a way that is not difficult for the main political party. So there is a kind of like they have set themselves in a position where it is easier for them to do the same thing all over again every 4 years, and it's always the same 2 political parties. The one that is pro-statehood and the other one that is pro-maintaining the current status. Those are the 2 mains. So, and it never goes anywhere. The PNP, which is the pro-statehood party, they are the ones that have been. They are the ones that had Ricky Rosselló and Jennifer Gonzalez all the time going to Washington to beg for statehood on their knees, looking really stupid. The thing is that they keep bringing up the whole thing with the last plebiscite or something like that. It was a small percentage of the population that even voted in the whole referendum for the status, and they keep bringing up that it was a statehood that won that vote, but it was only a small part of the population that voted for that. That doesn't represent the whole island. And we need to understand that that same political party has been pushing for statehood for the island since the late 1960s, and nothing changes because the Congress is always saying no. The U.S. government is always saying no. Congress is always saying no. We need to leave that shit alone. Us, as Puerto Ricans, at least us, the islanders, we need to leave the whole statehood thing alone. It's not going to happen.
So basically, if a third party wants to do anything politically, it seems like they're gonna have to raise like truckloads of money in order to fan out the other two parties. If that is the situation?
Yes, and it's a little more difficult for them to get all of the signatures, the endorsements that they need to have, filling up the requirements, meeting the requirements to be able to file all of the paperwork so that they can be a participating additional party in the election process. They make it somewhat more difficult for them. And because the two main parties, they hold power in a way that they can make it more difficult for whatever competition, and that is the whole money aspect too. Now, in Puerto Rico, you don't have to raise billions of dollars like here in the U.S., but yeah, the campaign funds have to be raised, and it is more difficult for independent parties to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to play something that has been discussed in Congress. I want to play the audio for you guys. If you guys bear with me, give me one tiny second. You were gonna say something, Jose.
No, I'm just saying it's interesting. It seems like the politics in Puerto Rico mirror that at the mainland.
From day one, because it's a colony and it was forced to have the kind of like a lot of the same political structure as the United States. It was mandated. I mean, it's not something that we necessarily had a say into. There is a lot of things politically that we just do not have a say. The whole thing about for example, the whole thing about the resident commissioner, Dennis can confirm that that's a glorified position. That's a glorified spectator, because the resident commissioner in Washington doesn't have a say, doesn't have a voice, doesn't have a vote. It never has. It's not going to, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. So they're just being mandated to.
Yeah, absolutely. I want you guys to hear.
It would automatically make Puerto Rico a state upon a Puerto Rican referendum. And we've heard many reasons why this may or may not be in the interest of Puerto Rico. That is a question for Puerto Rico. The question of Congress is whether that's in the interest of the United States as a whole to admit Puerto Rico as a state. That's the responsibility that this bill would completely abrogate. I find that shocking, and I strongly disassociate myself from the support that's been expressed for that on behalf of the minority. To me, this bill sidesteps fundamental questions that arise from statehood. Let's start with the impact of taxation. Many Puerto Ricans are exempt from federal income taxes that they would have to pay under statehood. The General Accounting Office has estimated that the added tax burden that would accompany statehood could cause enormous job losses and additional on this issue. HR 1520. That's not the kind of convincing mandate that should decide the fundamental political relationship between Puerto Rico and the United States for all eternity. The impact of additional taxation will accompany statehood, the imposition of an official language opposed by a large majority of Puerto Rico, and the strong minority sentiments in Puerto Rico for independence, free association, or continued Commonwealth status set the stage for catastrophic civil unrest if statehood should be imposed on such a slender, fragile, and perhaps transitory majority. The question we need to ask is whether admitting Puerto Rico as a state makes our country stronger or weaker. That's the crucial question that I'm shocked and saddened to see my party content to simply ignore. This abrogates our responsibility under the Constitution and instead leaves this far.
Now, you guys saw, like, basically he brought up, like, the fact that we don't pay income federal taxes, but we're paying billions of dollars otherwise in federal taxes. And most of the states don't pay more income taxes than they receive in welfare. On top of that, he's talking about the language that I will give him. 82% of Puerto Ricans do not know English. And also the civil unrest, of course, because you have a large majority of Puerto Ricans that want to be emancipated. But you see how he slips in like the Commonwealth status. What Commonwealth do we have?
Like we just said, that was never a thing. We just said that was a lie. That was something that supposedly was supposed to be on paper, but it was never in practice. It was never a Commonwealth in practice. In practice, that's what it counts, and that never happened.
Yeah. Yeah, with the nine. Do you remember the La 936, the 936
Sí, yo me acuerdo.
hindered the manufacture? We could not do manufacturing, and even through that, we saw a lot of in the 90s and early 2000s, a lot of Cubans used to come to Puerto Rico to develop their businesses and whatnot. They left.
Yeah.
González Padín closed, Woolworth closed, a lot of places closed.
Yeah, I remember González Padín and Woolworth. Yeah, I remember them. And like the whole thing that goes back to something that you mentioned about the agriculture being kind of like the main source of income for the island. That was forcefully eradicated. He was taken down so they could make Puerto Rico more of a manufacturing ground, kind of like a manufacturing place. The 936 had to do with that, had a lot to do with that. And for when that was brought out of the island, when that was taken away, then a lot of the manufacturing sector that was established there for decades suffered greatly, unfortunately. But I don't know if we're going to be going back to agriculture like that, even though we still have arable, fertile, arable land that could be used.
Right now, Ramon, a lot of people, especially millennials, want to go into it. The problem is that there's 625 acres of land that are supposed to be distributed to local Puerto Ricans that want to develop those lands, and your government, your favorite government officials, have decided to give it to the private sector instead of giving it to Puerto Ricans, and the rest they don't want to give it to Puerto Ricans. They just want to keep them undeveloped so that people don't have that option. That's what Eliezer Molina is bringing a light into.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Just to show the hypocrisy of calling Puerto Rico a commonwealth. Virginia is known as a commonwealth. Pennsylvania is known as a commonwealth. I think Massachusetts is known as a commonwealth, which is an ill-glorified colony of the United States.
Absolutely. And that is something that I wish people will understand more. Like, we have the only benefit, if you can call it that, that we have as Puerto Ricans is just to move from state to state and try to find where we can work and make a living. That's the only benefit. That's it.
Not much of a benefit.
Yeah.
Yes. That has been the only benefit. And if there was kind of like a more efficient work visa process, probably we wouldn't need it as much. Now, when it comes to the whole independence question, I know that's wishful thinking for many very idealistic islanders. I do believe that we might be better off if we have some kind of like some kind of level of sovereignty, kind of like having more sovereignty over ourselves. If we could achieve something like that.
But you know why I don't necessarily want to go there, Ramon, because that's exactly what Spain did to us in 1897.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they granted us our freedom like that, like our sovereignty, and they just took it away whenever it was convenient for them, and they lost the war. We need, in my opinion, something that I've been thinking about is establishing a contract, because we're signed off to the US in perpetuity. And to be honest with you, that can be argued legally in many different ways. We were not fully capable as human beings to actually, we were not even educated enough at that point in history to make that assessment correctly, without knowing fully or having a full disclosure of what the United States was planning to do to Puerto Rico. And on top of that, that was imposed. It was never negotiated. We didn't have a room to negotiate.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I would say, we'll give you, let's say, 50 more years or 100 more years under the Commonwealth status. And after that, during that time, we will start like different apprenticeships and stuff like that with the youth, so that they can learn nation building skills and how to work the market and commerce and whatnot, and then eventually bring them back to the island after their apprenticeship is finished, so that they can start developing the commerce in the island while we're doing the 50-year contract term. And by the time that's happening, we also have to work on creating jobs and establishing commerce around the world. And in 50 years, then they can leave. And as an exchange for us giving them 50 years of keep paying them the ridiculous taxes that they're imposing on us, we will require a peace treaty and some form of defense, and train our National Guard with the military of the US so that we can defend ourselves from threats. I think that's the most logical path that we can, a more realistic path that we can actually have as of today. Because in all honesty, even the establishing of the Commonwealth, not only for Puerto Rico, but for Guam as well, is completely unconstitutional. The 13th Amendment establishes that this is not supposed to be the way. We're not supposed to have half the rights if we are U.S. citizens, and therefore we're supposed to vote for the people in office. We're not allowed to. There's a lot of things that went into this equation illegally, and we can argue this in court if we're educated enough, if we're united enough.
Yeah,
So, guys,
what you were saying. Okay. Well, but that adds to what I was mentioning. Okay, we cannot get independence for the island. Okay, but what you're saying goes into that part of having more sovereignty, soberanía, kind of like sovereignty. Sovereignty is that's the word that I was trying to use, but it will start by the leaders being able to have the discipline and being up to the challenge for that.
I think the leaders are not going to do it. I think we have to create a movement ourselves. And actually fight it, because leaders feel the same way, make no mistake. But if you look down into, first of all, I'm going to say something that's unpopular opinion, but I have researched this deeply. If you look into every single one of the people that have governed Puerto Rico or administered the colony in the last 100 years, well, not 100 years, in the last, I would say 40 years, you're going to see that we're talking about foreigners that lived in Puerto Rico in some form of way, but they are foreigners. They're mostly come from colonial Spain. Like if you look at the Pierluisis, he doesn't have more than 3 generations back located in Puerto Rico. If you look at Rosellos, they are a Spaniard. If you look at the McClintocks, the Fortuños, and even Hernandez Colon, you're gonna see a pattern. You're gonna start seeing it. Like I can't say a lot of things on YouTube, but you're gonna start seeing a pattern that the people that are ruling Puerto Rico are not actual Puerto Ricans. Those are immigrants from Spain that actually went to school in the United States for the most part, and then came back to Puerto Rico with their sons that went to school here, went to college here in the US, and then became politicians. So it's not convenient for them because they still have those exploitative tendencies from Spain and from other places like Germany, for example. And what they are doing is that they know, hey, I can literally rule these people and be brutalistic about it and actually, enrich myself. And by the time that people catch up, it's going to be too late. So they're not going to stop what's enriching them just because you say so. They don't feel the same towards Puerto Rico as we do. So, of course, it has to come from actual Puerto Ricans that can trace back their lineage at least 5 to 7 generations in there, or at least even 4 or even 3. That are actual Puerto Ricans.
Yeah, they need to be criollos.
Absolutely.
They have the identity of more of a criollo, because if we're gonna be having maybe Puerto Ricans, but if they are kind of like ideologically
immigrants,
Spain, then they shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't have positions of leadership on the island, because there were, all the way back to the 18th century, there were Puerto Ricans that may have been of European descent. Yes.
Yeah.
They had more of the mentality of, look, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm not Spaniard, and that's how I see myself. I mean, I have European descent in me. Yes, I do. But I'm Puerto Rican. I'm not Spanish.
Yeah, and that is the thing. Like, a lot of people don't understand that. Like, for example, look at this comment here with Wananaco Sayajin. He's like, a lot of Puerto Rican descent from Spaniards. It's not surprising. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is that after, and I don't know why it's so difficult for people to listen instead of hearing. We're talking about after the United States was established, long after, almost 80 years after, we have Spaniards moving in to rule Puerto Rico. Please keep up.
Guys, the difference between listening and hearing is that, for one, you need some brain cells that hasn't deteriorated and turned to mush to do it.
Oh my God. But seriously, guys, I'm gonna start wrapping this up. Like I said, this is just the beginning. Trust me, I'm having something in the works. And like I said, do your part. To whoever is watching, like I said, I hope this has the conversation started among Puerto Ricans and Ricans everywhere, so that we can come up with a program that it doesn't matter your ideology. It doesn't matter if you want to pull towards the left or the right. It doesn't matter. We still have to put in work. If you're a state, you still have to work. If you become independent, you still have to work. If you stay the same, you still have to work. If we become sovereign, we still have to work. So, in all honesty, we have to put pieces together for something that can take us out of this abyss. And that is my assessment. With that being said, Jose, final thoughts, and then Ramon, final thoughts.
Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be on your stream. As always, you bring forth solid information to look at. I just want to say that we cannot be tied down to parties. What we need to do is we need to do solid research regarding those people who are running for whether political offices and whatnot. And then we need to support those individuals that have our interests in heart. And we must take into account all those politicians who don't do their part, and it's just using their office for political gain. So that being said, Ramon, it's always a pleasure to hear from you as well. Just want to remind everybody that I will be live this Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. I don't know how it is in
5:30.
Okay. And 8:30 Central Standard Time. And we're going to be talking about the mentally and intellectually challenged, known as the MIX, which is my umbrella group for all those slow taps out there. So we're going to have a serious discussion about it. And I'm going to close the same way that I always close. People, please be careful out there, because we do have to deal with a thing called C-19, and we must do what we can to avoid contact with the mentally and intellectually challenged, because if we fail to do so, our brain cells will begin to deteriorate and die, and then we'll become slow taps.
The UTA, the United Taps of America, like Rakim calls them. Thank you so much, Jose. I'm going to put you in the background. Don't go anywhere. Ramon, final thoughts.
Yes. As Jose said, I also want to say I appreciate you letting me on your stream, on your panel, and you went over several subjects, and many of them could take up a whole stream of their own. You know that because
Yeah.
there was you only you touch on the surface. How does it say? You barely scraped on the surface of several of these subjects. So this can be broken down and expanded on different streams. That could be, that's the first thing that comes to mind about that. But one thing that I did wanted to take a chance at saying, the part that you were talking about when it comes to the difference between islander Puerto Ricans and diasporans, that's something that I wanted to add the following. Like you said, islanders, we're dealing with a lot of shit, and like you said, we don't really have time to be sitting around and hating on another group of people because they are diasporans. We understand that diasporans didn't have a choice. The following generations or the parents of the diasporans had to make a difficult choice, the same choice that I had to make, you have to make.
Yep.
When it comes to migrating outside of the island. So we have at least somebody like you and somebody like me, we have come to understand what it is to become kind of like somebody who is in exile. And that's why the song En Mi Viejo San Juan has become so significant to me, because it speaks to me. It's describing me, it's describing you, it's describing every Puerto Rican that has had to leave the island. So we have come to have more of an understanding as to what diasporans have had to deal with, at least their parents. Now, diasporans that were born in the United States, they see the United States as their home. That's perfectly fine. But the thing is that you might have a bit of a cultural disconnect from the island. And that's why we say, as islanders, we welcome the opportunity for us to reconnect culturally and being able to see more eye to eye, be on the same page. Like you say, no, we don't hate you. I don't know whoever told you that we hate you because you are diaspora. You need to take that shit out of your head, because that's for the vast majority of us. That's not true. We don't have time for that. We islanders are by nature very welcoming people. You know that.
Yeah.
And one thing, the only diasporans, the only ones that I may have a bit of a problem with, and I think we have talked about this before, is with the small faction of diasporans that are clinging on to the memory of the Spanish Empire, the dead Spanish Empire, the Spanish Empire that was terminated by the United States in 1898, because that's what happened. Whatever little remained of the Spanish Empire, it was terminated in 1898. Get that through your head. Stop clinging on to the dead Spanish Empire, and let's get to the 21st century so that we can actually have more of an understanding, actually come together and be on the same page culturally. Islanders and diasporans. That's the thing that I will have to exhort the diasporans. They are a tiny minority, but they are the only ones that I actually have a problem with because because they're clinging to it like it's actually gonna make a comeback, which is something that I can prove that's not gonna happen. I will have to make my own video about that because I have reason. I have reason, a credible body of evidence that suggests that the Spanish Empire is not gonna make a comeback. So stop dreaming about that. It's not gonna happen. Again.
Absolutely. They can't even afford to rebuild the statues that they exploited a lot of slaves to, chisel. And they have the most botched, like in Europe, they have the most botched statues that have been there for like hundreds of years.
Yeah.
In Europe. So they don't even have money for that. What makes you think they have money for a freaking Inquisition right now? Hell no.
Yeah, 21st century Inquisition and getting
Wisdom.
back the colonies and the Americans. Like, get the fuck out of here. That's not gonna happen.
But Ramon, thank you very much for tuning in. You know, I appreciate always having you here, especially because you bring the no bullshit perspective
Yes,
to
yes,
everything, and I absolutely love
yes.
that. So I'm gonna put you backstage. Don't go anywhere, guys. It has been like Ramon said. I'm barely scratching the surface, obviously, because this show was intended to explain either to diasporans and non-Puerto Rican diasporas alike, and even to people from other communities here in America, to actually understand what Puerto Ricans have been talking about, what is our relationship with the United States, and how it came to happen, how our population was formed, how we came to be the people that we are today. Now, there's a lot of things that I can talk about. In reality, I like to focus more on business and finances and money and whatnot. I might do other things regarding this when I finish what I'm working on regarding Puerto Rico and the diaspora to come united as one. I will definitely talk more about it. But for the meantime, I hope, like I said, now you understand our frenemies relationship with the United States that has been that of violent partner on their end, and you can explain it to anybody else. If you cannot explain it to anybody else, just direct them here to this video. As usual, guys, you know that this is my new schedule. I'm going to be live on next Saturday at 12 p.m. Pacific time and 4 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to bring another topic that's going to be highly controversial as well. And like I said, this season I'm going to focus mostly on the slow taps and the tap community overall. Next week, I'm going to be touching a little bit more on the state taps and the debts that they have contributed to Puerto Rico specifically. So make sure you tune in for that. If you have not liked this video, make sure you like it. Also, if you're subscribed and sometimes you come in late and you don't know why, make sure when you subscribe, you press on your notifications on the little bell. You press all so that you get a notification every time that I go live, and that way you don't miss anything, not even a second. Okay, so guys, thank you very much for allowing me into your homes and your devices. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram so you can keep up with me. Send me a message whenever you can, and also don't forget, this new week is a new opportunity to stay productive, to harvest some ideas and stuff that you have been working on. If you have any questions regarding something you want to start, something you want to do, you can always shoot me an email. Also, you can DM me on Instagram. But overall, I want you guys to do something this week. Okay? Don't forget that. Every time that you're going to do a decision, make sure you use it. Now, I want to thank everybody that joined the panel, everybody that was on the chat. Thank you very much for being here. I hope this has been educational for you guys. It was very entertaining for me to have it. I'm sorry. And it has been another episode of Latinsplaining with Denise, all about business and finances, sometimes politics, and actually fun. Thank you guys. I hope to see you guys Saturday. Peace and have a nice week.